Welcome to my scientifically informed insider look at mental health topics. If you find this video to be interesting or helpful, please like it and subscribe to my channel. Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question asks if I can analyze the mental health and personality factors at work in the Ahmaud Arbery case. Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. So here I'll look at the timeline first, then move to the mental health and personality factors and analyze the guilt or innocence at work in this case. So starting with the timeline, this case starts on February 23, 2020 in Brunswick, Georgia. 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery was jogging and entered the Satilla Shores neighborhood. 64-year-old Gregory McMichael sees Arbery jogging and believes that Arbery resembles an individual suspected of a few burglaries that had occurred in that area. Less than 2 weeks before this, Gregory's son, 34-year-old Travis McMichael, had called the police to report someone trespassing on a construction site. Gregory and Travis retrieve a .357 Magnum revolver and a shotgun. Gregory and Travis climb into Travis's pickup truck, and they drive toward Arbery. They almost caught up with Arbery when he started running another direction. It was at this point that Gregory climbs into the bed of the truck. He also dialed 911. When they catch up to Arbery, evidently they told him to stop. They wanted to talk to him. At this point, it looks like Arbery runs in front of the truck and enters into an altercation with Travis McMichael, who is carrying a shotgun. The two are fighting over the shotgun. In the course of that fight, Travis fires that shotgun 3 times, hitting Arbery in the wrist and twice in the chest. After the third shot, Arbery drops to the ground. During Gregory's 911 call, which I listened to a few times, it sounds like he told Arbery to drop that, probably referring to the shotgun. He also says to stop, and at the end he says the name Travis. I think it's likely that this will be brought up in the trial to make an argument that Gregory was trying to defuse the situation. The police arrive shortly after this and find that Arbery is dead. Over 2 months later, we see that the McMichaels would be charged. Gregory and Travis were charged with felony murder and aggravated assault. So with felony murder, this means that the murder occurred during the commission of a felony. So in this case, the aggravated assault. The intent to kill is not needed. The penalty is life in prison with or without parole. This charge was filed against both of them, even though Travis pulled the trigger, right? So this is where the felony murder comes in. Gregory only had to be there and commit a felony. He didn't actually have to be the one that pulled the trigger. William Bryan, Jr., age 50, who recorded the incident on his smartphone, was also charged with felony murder and a criminal attempt to commit false imprisonment. This case is on its 4th prosecutor at the time of making this video. Who knows how many they'll get up to eventually. We see that 2 district attorneys recused themselves because they had connections to Gregory McMichael. McMichael had retired in 2019 from the district attorney's office. He worked as an investigator, and before that, he worked as a law enforcement officer. 2 county commissioners accused one district attorney, named Jackie Johnson, of preventing the police from arresting the McMichaels. That district attorney blamed the police. Now, if the police could just blame those county commissioners for something, we could complete the circle of blame in this case. Another district attorney, George Barnhill, recused himself. But before he did so, he suggested to the police that the McMichaels were not criminally responsible because they had the right to conduct a citizen's arrest and they acted in self-defense. As it stands at the time of making this video, it appears as if this case is going to trial. So moving to mental health and personality factors and looking at guilt or innocence. It appears that the McMichaels have no criminal history. I'm not sure about William Bryan, but I didn't see any reports of him having a criminal history. We see that Arbery did have a criminal history. In 2013, at 19 years old, he took a weapon to a high school basketball game. It was a firearm. He was sentenced to 5 years probation. In 2017, an officer tried to tase him after Arbery refused to allow the officer to search his car. The taser evidently failed. The police searched Arbery's car later on, and they found cannabis. In 2018, we see that Arbery commits a probation violation connected to a shoplifting charge. He was still on probation at the time of this murder. Before the incident, prosecutors say that he was in a building he was not authorized to be in. Later, it was identified as a home that was under construction. Now, we see one report that says he has no mental health history. Barnhill, in his letter, seemed to disagree with that. So in that letter that Barnhill wrote the police, as I mentioned, we see that he's really advocating for the McMichaels. He said that he had a lot of experience, so he has kind of a grandiose start to the letter, kind of a look how great I am feel to it. He says that the McMichaels were legally open carrying firearms, which he's technically right about the open carry law, but not about their specific right to carry under those circumstances. Barnhill said that the McMichaels and Bryan were in hot pursuit of Arbery. Moments later, Roscoe P. Coltrane from the Dukes of Hazzard called Barnhill and asked for his line back. Barnhill also said they had solid first-hand probable cause to stop Arbery, I guess as opposed to that annoying, mushy second-hand probable cause. Barnhill is saying here that the McMichaels were perfectly within their legal rights. He said that Arbery attacked, and there was a fight over the shotgun. This, of course, does seem evident. He also said that, according to Arbery's mental health and criminal record, Arbery must have been aggressive. So as indicated before, here we see a discrepancy. It's not clear whether there was a mental health history for Arbery or not. I wish these prosecutors would leave mental health out of these situations, though. I feel like this didn't add any value to what he was trying to accomplish with that letter. This prosecutor, Barnhill, mischaracterized the incident. He tried to blur the picture by talking about his impressive background. I wonder if this prosecutor works this hard for all defendants. Usually prosecutors try to prove that people are guilty. With this guy, a defendant doesn't even really need a defense attorney, right? He's saving the taxpayer dollars by doing his job and the job of the public defender. Also worrisome here in this letter is his use of grammar. A few charges that Barnhill may want to consider filing against himself: aggravated assault of word spacing, criminal misrepresentation of punctuation, and unlawful restraint of a conjunction. So how do all these factors combine to result in Arbery's death? Are the McMichaels guilty? As I mentioned before, the McMichaels had no criminal history. Their decision to pursue Arbery was impulsive, aggressive, and foolish, so seemingly out of character with the lack of criminal history. If they wanted to follow him at a distance and call the police, that would have been fine, but confronting him on the street while armed was a crime regardless of what happened next. It's actually surprising to me that somebody with Gregory's experience would make this type of mistake. Perhaps because he was a law enforcement officer at one time, he felt like he could just do what he wanted. The police would back him up, and of course it appears they did, at least initially. Travis may have felt emboldened by his father's participation. He may have assumed that his father would not do anything illegal. This is one of those situations that really would have turned out better if the McMichaels would just have thought things through. Just take a moment, think things through. What makes sense in the situation? Staying put and calling the police? That seems to make sense. Chasing after somebody while carrying firearms? That doesn't make any sense at all. So they acted impulsively, but they also followed through. Like it took some time for this whole incident to unfold. Really, we see a series of bad decisions. Self-defense can't be claimed by someone who initiates a confrontation. The citizen's arrest defense, mentioned by Barnhill, would work if Arbery had committed a felony. But at this point, it wasn't clear that he had committed any crime. Maybe trespassing, but McMichael would not have known about that. He didn't see Arbery trespassing. He just saw Arbery running by and believed that he was the same person who had trespassed before. At the moment when the McMichaels confronted Arbery, what does the situation look like from Arbery's perspective? He sees two armed men trying to detain him. He doesn't know what their intention is. He becomes aggressive in an effort to defend himself. He had every right to do that under these circumstances. Some people say, well, he should have just ran away or walked away. Well, these guys were carrying guns. He didn't know if they were going to be shooting at him. So he made the decision to attack Travis. Obviously, in retrospect, that wasn't a good idea, but again, he had a legal right to do that. Now, what about William Bryan, who was also charged with felony murder? I think this is going to be a lot harder to prove. I think the McMichaels are guilty, but I'm not really sure about Bryan. He had apparently attempted to block Arbery in, which is where they're getting the attempted false imprisonment charge. But without that charge, Bryan was simply a witness to a murder. Unless there's some evidence that we don't know about, like another video or additional testimony, I see this charge as a stretch. Some have said that Bryan was operating the action of a firearm while recording the video, like there's a sound in the background, but it's really not clear. I don't think anybody can establish that he had a firearm at that time. It seems like this is really pushing the felony murder rule too far. This particular rule has already been criticized as too punitive. Some jurisdictions are rethinking felony murder. I think what happens sometimes, particularly in armed robberies, is that somebody's waiting in the car and it's really hard to prove they know that their friends are going in and committing an armed robbery. Yet when they come out from that robbery and they get in the car, that person is now guilty of a murder if one was committed in the commission of that robbery. That's the felony murder rule. Everybody gets charged with murder. So again, some jurisdictions are rethinking this, and this just seems to be pushing it a bit too far. These charges may have been filed against Bryan to encourage his cooperation in testifying against the McMichaels. This crime is disturbing for a variety of reasons. Of course, the most significant reason is that Arbery lost his life. It's also worrisome that it took so long to charge the McMichaels. It seems clear that his connections to law enforcement afforded him vigorous protection that would not have been available to any other defendant. It's almost like they're hoping this whole thing would go away and nobody would ever be charged in Arbery's death. I know whenever I talk about controversial cases, there will be a variety of opinions. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comments section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be interesting. Thanks for watching.